What's going on, guys? Dan from SSG bringing you another Edison format match here. We have Mike G on the left playing Geartown Amaryllis and Nick N on the right playing Diva Hero. So Mike G playing a very interesting deck here. We have Geartown Amaryllis looking to summon a bunch of Galgatrons in the early game and punch in damage. And from there, we're going to try and burn them out with Amaryllis. So very interesting take on the Amaryllis burn deck. And it's more of an aggro burn deck, trying to just get off to a good start. And we have two set back rows and a set monster from Mike on the left. And we're gonna see how this interesting deck fares against the prevalent Diva Hero deck that a lot of people are playing in Edison. So we have a special summon of Infernal Prodigy on the right into a sacrifice for Caius, targeting the monster on Mike's side. So fairly decent start for the Diva Hero deck, looking to just interrupt what Mike has going on. And Mike actually opts to play Bottomless Trap Hole, kind of taking a 2-for-2 there, right? We have the Infernal Prodigy and Caius going away, and then we have a Defensive Debris Dragon and Bottomless going away from Mike on the left. And the Debris Dragon gets hit, and then Mike sets a back row and ends his turn, passing back over to Nick on the right side. So let's see how the Diva Hero deck is going to follow up here. He goes for an MST onto the new back row. Interesting play here. Maybe he's going to try and resolve something like a Stratos, but we have a chained Raigeki break, discarding Amaryllis, trying to get that in the graveyard, and then a chain Wing Blast. So a bunch of discard and removal traps, and then he's discarding another Wing Blast. And then this follow-up of Diva. So very interesting exchange there. We have multiple chainable trap cards being activated, ending with a clear board, and then Diva coming down, summoning his Spine Gilman. So I think this is a favorable exchange for Nick, because he has a Diva Hero. He has the follow-up here, right, of Diva into an empty board. So he's going to be the first one to establish a threat, and Mike's going to have to deal with that threat. Magical Android coming down and attacking for 2400. So not a bad start for the Diva Hero player. Both players going really low on resources in this spot, as Nick passes his turn over to Mike. And Mike sets two more back rows. So a very back row heavy draw from Mike here. He's already activated two trap cards, and now he's setting potentially two more. Goes to Nick's turn, and he declares another attack with the Android, not committing too much to the board. Just going to keep attacking, as you most likely should in Edison format, and the attack goes through. So Magical Android providing a pretty fast clock, coming in and attacking twice. Very strong here. I mean, the open board Diva is really strong. He passes to Mike, and he passes back again. So this Android is going to get a chance at attacking a third time. But we have a normal summon of what looks like Armageddon Knight. And let's see what he sends off of this Armageddon Knight. Most likely you have a Malicious or a Plague Spreader Zombie is what the Diva deck is most likely sending. I like one copy of Armageddon Knight in a lot of my Diva Hero lists. Just kind of gives the deck a little extra extender play. And he does go for a Plague Spreader Zombie. So good choice here. We'll see what he ends up doing with that. Interesting that Nick decided to extend more into this board, because the Magical Android was getting the job done. But I think he's just trying to maybe go for a kill here. Maybe he senses some weakness in Mike's position. And yeah, so now he's just going to stop and go for an attack here with Android. And let's see what Mike has in response. And it's a Magic Cylinder. Very interesting tech card out of this Amaryllis burn deck. It's going to be able to deal some damage, right? That's the point of this deck, is to clock your opponent and then burn them out. And Magical Cylinder is good at doing that. And now when the Armageddon declares attack, we have Wing Blast discarding Dandelion. So now Mike looking to fight back a little bit. Although he might be at a low life total, he has a few things going for him now with the Dandy tokens. And the follow-up play from Nick is Miracle Fusion, just establishing the Absolute Zero, maybe sensing that Mike has some sort of comeback play like Debris Dragon. He wants to be able to set up the Absolute Zero. But instead, Mike passes over to Mike, and he has two more back rows. He still has two set back rows and reborns the Amaryllis in the end phase. So very interesting board state here now, right? We have Amaryllis coming back, two tokens, and we have Absolute Zero and Armageddon on the right side with a Plague Spreader in the graveyard. So there's a lot going on in this game, as it developed really quickly after that big exchange that happened in the early parts of the game. Both players trading a lot of cards, and now we're kind of rebuilding, and we're in a very interesting spot where Amaryllis is effectively dealing a bunch of burn damage, and Absolute Zero is potentially taking over this game. We have another Deep Sea Diva coming down, so a pretty solid draw from Nick here, as he's going to grab another copy of Deep Sea Diva. And this is sort of the explosiveness of the Diva Hero deck, right? You have a lot of cards going on here. We have a lot of cards in play, rather. And he's going to synchro off 2 of them to summon a Brionac. So Brionac going to come down and potentially deal some damage here, get some things out of the way. He's thinking about discarding the last card in his hand. I think if he's making Brionac, he's just probably thinking about his target. He is going to plan on discard that card. So he activates priority, discarding Miracle Fusion. I think he's looking for a kill here. I think he's going to just try to be as aggressive as possible, and he probably senses some weaknesses in Mike's spot. However, Mike chains the back row of Bottomless Trapple, so unlucky hit, right? He targets the Bottomless Trapple with priority, and Bottomless hits the Brionac, so a little bit unfortunate, as Diva ends up attacking the Amaryllis, taking it down, and Absolute Zero over the token, and now we're on to Mike's turn. So Mike, considering his options here, looks like he only has 2 cards, right? So he might not have many options, but it looks like he actually drew a Lone Fire Blossom, so that's an excellent draw to try and get him back in this game, as it's going to fuel that Amaryllis in the graveyard, and also give him access to some powerful cards out of his deck. So he gets a second Lone Fire, sacrifices it off, and then goes for the Titanial, so now he has the board position now. So a top deck from Mike of Lone Fire Blossom is gonna maybe get him right back into this game, facing down an Absolute Zero. Very interesting draw here, and he attacks over the Diva for a lot of damage, and now you're talking Magic Cylinder, a big attack right there, Amaryllis, multiple activations of Amaryllis as it comes back in the end phase. It looks like Mike's deck is now firing on all cylinders, no pun intended, and I mean, now it's on Nick to kind of answer as he draws and passes over to Mike, and now we have just Absolute Zero, kind of the inevitable board wipe that is going to happen. Mike is going to switch his Amaryllis to attack position, and this is exactly what you want in your Amaryllis deck. Just being able to attack with your Amaryllis is just unreal. It just provides so much damage. It's a lot of damage. So Mike, sort of considering his options, he kind of knows that the board is going to get cleared. He's just trying to maximize his damage, I believe, at this point. It's also interesting that the Amaryllis is just providing card advantage now in a simplified board state. Amaryllis is going to be able to just keep coming back if Nick can't answer it every turn. And so let's see what we have. Attack from Titanial here, destroying the Absolute Zero. Absolute Zero clearing the board. And then we have Amaryllis coming back in the end phase. So I mean, Amaryllis just applying a ton of pressure, and Nick has to do something, right? He's running low on life, and he's gonna eventually just get burned out here. The Amaryllis is 2200, and it will destroy itself after it declares an attack, dealing 3k. So a lot of pressure here. Nick only down to 2 cards, and this Amaryllis is going to keep coming back, as he has, I believe, 2 more activations with the Titanial and the Lone Fire, rather, in graveyard still. So Nick sort of exploring his options here. He ends up setting a back row, keeping 1 card in hand. And now Mike again turning Amaryllis to attack and declaring an attack for 2200. And then the Amaryllis kills itself, dealing another 800. And that's lethal. So what looked like a pretty grim game for Mike just turns around, and Amaryllis just takes over the game. Very, very powerful card that I think should be explored a little bit more and played in a wide variety of different ways. So I think finding the best build for it is definitely worth exploring, as Mike has been working on this deck for a while. He finds himself just with Amaryllis in the late game and burning Nick out, just attacking and dealing burn damage. So very interesting first game there, where he looked to be a little bit behind and kind of facing down a lot of different threats from the Absolute Zero deck. But Amaryllis comes down and wins the game. On game 2, we have Nick going first, and he opens with Dark Grepher. So Dark Grepher, very good card here. He looks like he's going to discard an Infernal Prodigy. Not the greatest discard, right? But it's still going to allow him to get a Malicious into the graveyard. So very good start. I mean, I don't mind the start. You know, you discard down 1 card, but then you end up with Mally Engrave, kind of replacing the card you discarded. So also the 17 stick is a reasonable body in Grepher, but he passes over to Mike, and Mike opens with Lone Fire Blossom. So fairly ideal start out of Mike. He goes Lone Fire into Lone Fire, and then summons a Titanial to attack over the Dark Grepher. So I love Lone Fire into Titanium in this format. It's just a normal summon, a huge threat that your opponent has to deal with as Mike sets a back row behind Titanium. And it's one of those board states that you can kind of just run away with the game, right? Titanium just provides a fast clock, and interaction alongside it can just kind of blow people out. So now it's kind of on Nick to respond and see what he does here, and he ends up setting a monster. So we're hoping that's a snowman on Nick's side, or he might end up getting run over here. But let's see if Mike chooses to develop into the board, and he does. He ends up normal summoning a Barbaros and attacking into the snowman. So Nick does have the snowman here, and believe he's targeting the Titanium, and the Titanium is forced to negate because the snowman would be walling the Barbaros. So very interesting here, and we'll see what the follow-up is here for Mike on the left. Luckily that snowman kind of stabilized a little bit and for Nick, but Mike sets another back row and now has a 1900 stick in Barbaros. So what's going to be the play from Nick's side to try and deal with the Barbaros through 2 back row? We have a Miracle Fusion to start. I mean, that's an excellent start. Miracle Fusion very strong here, removing the Prodigy and Snowmanator to summon Absolute Zero. Summon's good, and the attack is good. Attacking over Barbaros, this is a huge swing. Absolute Zero attacking into a monster and establishing the board is very strong, and he just passes over to Mike, who now has to deal with an Absolute Zero. Really strong swing there. I mean, it just shows the power of this Diva Hero deck, and the power of Miracle Fusion just summoning a big monster, you know. Mike is going to have to deal with a huge monster in Absolute Zero, but also lose some resources in the process, as, you know, Absolute Zero very strong, having a board wipe effect. Mike just sets another back row and passes over to Nick, and Nick immediately goes into his extra deck, so I think he smells blood here. Nick is a very aggressive player at times, and he might just add more to this board. Into 3 back rows, I think it's a little risky, but I mean, maybe he smells blood in the water. Maybe he's going to come out and put more onto this board. And he does, so he ends up summoning Stratos, and I think he's using the search ability, and there is a torrential response, so maybe a little bit of an aggressive play from Nick, but the Stratos kind of replaces itself, so it's not too bad. Maybe you would have liked an attack just from Absolute Zero, but you don't know how the other 2 back rows would play out. And we have a search of another Infernal Prodigy here, so it's going to give Nick another card to work with, and another copy of Miracle Fusion. This is an unreal display of Diva Hero's power here, just miracle after miracle. And another one comes down, another Absolute Zero comes down. Really strong follow-up. Maybe that's why he was okay with being so aggressive. I don't mind it, you know, if the Stratos goes through and you just attack, it's a huge reward for being aggressive. And if nothing happens, if you get blown out by a Torrential or something, you don't actually get blown out because another miracle comes down, and Absolute Zero declares an attack. So 2,500 damage coming Mike's way, and now it's back on Mike to deal with this Absolute Zero, and he's gonna lose more resources doing so if he pushes into it. But he draws for turn, and he's looking to see what he has here. Immediately flips up for a Geki Break, and discards a Bottomless Trap Hole. So Mike ends up spending 2 cards to deal with the Absolute Zero, but now we have a Terraforming and searching on a Mausoleum. So interesting tech card there. And now we have set of Geartown and then set of Mausoleum to summon out Galvatron Dragon, and this is exactly what and then a flip of Mausoleum tribute summoning for Titanium. So unbelievable play here, getting rid of the Absolute Zero and then just making a huge board out of nowhere, and this is what the Geartown deck wants to do. So now Nick has to deal with Galvatron Dragon and Titanium as he MSTs the back row to get that out of the way and hopefully deal with this big board. You're seeing the power of Geartown here. I think it just destroys an MST, so nothing too bad there. And then we have a special summon of Infernal Prodigy and a normal summon of Deep Sea Diva. So this hero deck is not done yet. We have multiple Miracle Fusions and now a massive Diva play. It just shows how amazing this deck can be, and why everyone wants to play Diva Heroes, as it's just a deck that provides a lot of different plays. And look, we have Malicious out of the graveyard. Look at this board. Look at these combo extenders on the side of Nick and Diva Hero. I mean, it's just like the deck won't go away. Mike has done so much in this game and kind of flipped it around and dealt through multiple absolute zeros, and we still have this huge play on the right side. So we're going to see what he synchros into here. Looks like the 2 level 2s is going to go into Armory Arm. And maybe we have some Armory Arm Colossal Fighter action going here, depending on the warrior count in the graveyard. Let's see what we have here. Yeah, so Armory Arm, and then let's see level 8. What's he going to make here? I mean, he has a few different options, right? He can go into like Stardust, make a huge Stardust. He can go Colossal Fighter, maybe do some crashing plays. He does go for the Colossal Fighter. So, I don't think there's an... Oh, maybe he's not going Colossal? I don't think he can actually OTK, because I think he would end up, like, losing on damage himself, because he just took a massive hit. So, Colossal... I think... So, there's a little confusion here. They're both reading cards, and, I believe what ends up happening is the Colossal crashes with Galvatron, because it's at 3,000. Yeah, I think they're talking about it right now. Yeah, so the Armor Arm stays... Yeah, so what happens is the Colossal crashes into Galvatron, comes back, attacks over the Titanium for 200, and then Armory Arm declares a direct attack and equips to the Colossal Fighter, as Mike just, on his turn, sets a back row and passes back to Nick on the right. So, extremely explosive play, right? We have, you know, after all the Miracle Fusions and all the things that Nick has already done in this game, we have Colossal Fighter Armory Arm still capable. But now he's going to special summon the Armory Arm and then sack for Caius. He's so aggressive, just doesn't care. He banishes a Mirror Force. And then we're going to have a lethal attack from the Colossal Fighter and the Caius. So, insane explosion out of the Diva Hero deck in the late game. To come back from Galvatron plus Titanium. I mean, that's just unreal, right? Just an awesome display of both decks there, right? Unfortunately, Mike wasn't able to get into his Amaryllis, but he got his Geartown engine going and provided a huge amount of damage and a big board. But Diva Hero, just the inevitability of this deck in the late game to do so many different powerful things, gets it the win here. So let's see. That was a pretty awesome game 2, and we're going to see what happens here in game 3 as Mike is going to set a monster and set a back row on turn 1, and go over to Nick, and he's also going to set a monster and pass over. So a little of a slow start in comparison to the last few turns of the previous game, and we have a flip of Botanical Girl. Botanical Girl, a searcher for plants, right? Whenever it's destroyed and sent to the grave, it searches a plant monster. I believe it's 1500 defense or less. It runs into a Snowman Eater, which I believe is going to kill the Botanical Girl, and will go grab Mike a plant out of his deck. Kind of searches a lot of things in his deck. Solid play, right? It's just kind of a floater that gets his engine going. Go get some powerful cards, and it looks like he grabs an Amaryllis, so he wants access to the Amaryllis as early as possible, and he wants to activate it as many times as possible. So doesn't mind playing a card like Botanical Girl in his deck to do that. Sort of looks at his back row and sees what else he's going to do, as he still has his normal summon. And we'll see what he has here. He ends up passing, so interesting, no follow-up play there from Mike, as Nick draws his card with the Snowman Eater in play. He's going to set another monster, it looks like, or no, maybe not. Pretty slow start from both decks here, right? We have Snowman Eater, Botanical Girl. Let's see who's going to be able to get on the board early and do something, as Nick just sets another defense position monster, so fairly interesting. That could be another Snowman Eater. Snowman Eater seems to be fairly good in this matchup, killing big cards that Mike is playing, but now we have a Terraforming from Mike on the left here. And as you've seen in the previous game, Mike has a few different options he can grab off the Terraforming. Of course, Geartown and Mausoleum at the very least. I'm sure he has more options in the sideboard, things like Zombie World as well. But it looks like he's going for Mausoleum here. Mausoleum, kind of one of these unexplored cards in Edison format, just very strong. Paying life points to summon huge monsters. I mean, who doesn't want to be doing that? And it feels like a very strong card in this deck. And then, of course, we do have a set field spell and another set field spell to destroy the Geartown and summon a Galvatron Dragon. So It looks like Mike's going to be the first one to get on the board here in any significant way. And Geartown Dragon, a huge beat stick, and we're going to have an attack over a Sangan on the right side. So Sangan, really powerful in the Diva hero deck, can get a lot of different things. Of course, he can get Deep Sea Diva, but also can get Malicious, and it looks like he's going to grab another Snowman here. So he really values Snowman in this matchup, and I don't blame him. It seems like a very, very strong card. Just Mike is looking to get in a lot of damage with these big creatures, and Snowman's just going to be able to wall them up and destroy them one for one. So in main phase 2, we have a flip over of Mausoleum, and we're going to see what he's going to summon here. He tributes 2,000 life points to normal summon the Amaryllis in main phase 2. And then he sets another back row, and that back row happens to be Trapped Dust Shoot. So we get an interesting look at Nick's hand here as he just searched the Snowman Eater. We have DD Crow, looks like 2 copies of Caius, Plague Spreader. So a lot of monsters, monster heavy hand, and we have the Miracle Fusion as well. So I imagine we're going to try to take something that prevents the Miracle Fusion from being live, but that doesn't look like an immediate threat. So fairly interesting choice here. When your opponent has a lot of monsters, you gotta really pick what one you think is going to have the highest impact on the game with Trapped Dust Shoot. And this is one of the type of hands that seems to be fairly difficult to evaluate just because there's so many options you could take. And yeah, DD Crow is going to interact with the Amaryllis potentially. A lot going on, and he picks one of the copies of Caius. I don't mind that. Caius is just a very strong card. Although there's a redundant copy, I think that Caius just is a high impact card, and you kind of got to take it. But the second Caius does come down here, sacrificing the Snowman Eater and targeting the Geartown Dragon. And it looks like we have Bottomless in response, so Caius just proving very strong, just getting a 2-for-1 right away, and passing the turn over to Mike. And we have an attack for Amaryllis, so I think the Bottomless makes a lot of sense in the spot, right? He Bottomlesses the Caius to make sure that Amaryllis can get a direct attack and just get the damage in, as Amaryllis attacks with 3k, destroys itself, deals 800. But now the DD Crow comes down immediately when the Amaryllis hits the graveyard, and Nick already fell victim to Amaryllis once he wants to get it out of the grave as soon as possible, and he does it immediately. He's just like, nope, get that out of there. But as Mike just shown him, he has Foolish Burial in hand, so Nick actually doesn't wait till the end phase to get the Amaryllis in the graveyard. So Mike's just explaining that we're just making sure that it was activated immediately and not in the end phase. So Mike is going to follow up with Foolish Burial. So a little bit of a confusion there, but I think we got it figured out, and Foolish Burial comes in and sends the Amaryllis to the graveyard. So this is exactly what Mike's deck wants to do. It attacked for 3,000, burned for 800. Now another Amaryllis activation coming back. You have Mausoleum to summon big monsters. I mean, the deck is really just kind of going off here and doing what it's supposed to do, as Nick just sets a monster and a Speller Trap on his turn and passes back to Mike. So Amaryllis goes to attack position, declares another attack onto Treeborn Frog, and then Amaryllis will destroy itself, doing another 800 points of damage. So Mike just really valuing the burn damage here, and it just adds up very quickly. 800 is a lot, and after a few attacks with big monsters, Amaryllis can just close a game. So every 800 matters. And now we have a defense position monster from Nick on the right, and a whole turn cycle of passing. So just Mike's just passing, doing nothing at all, looking for a play, and now Nick is gonna maybe have some time to stabilize, but he just looks like he's setting another monster. And we remember that we had the Plague Spreader in hand and another Snowman, so kind of just like having not very good plays to like go and attack with, but just more defensive and sort of setup plays. But Nick did have a lot of cards, so he's kind of surveying his options and seeing exactly what he wants to do here. So he ends up passing, doesn't commit another monster to the board there, And Mike has a lot of time to sort of develop and maybe draw into one of his big monsters, the Summit of Mausoleum. But he sets another back row and passes back over to Nick, who then decides to add another monster to the board by setting a monster. And passes back over to Mike. So a lot of passing back and forth, not too much going on, right, in this mid game. I think they're just waiting for each other to commit, right? You don't want to commit into either of those boards, so. But it looks like we have a normal summon of Barbaros, and then it attacks over the Plague Spreader zombie that was the new set. And then we have a draw for turn from Nick, and he's the one that has to now deal with this Barbaros. But presumably he has an answer in the Snowman Eater that is probably face down on his board right now. So, very slow mid-game here, but whoa, not so slow. We have Dark Arm Dragon coming down. That wasn't there a few turns ago when Trap Dust Shoot activated and revealed the hand. So Dark Arm coming down, presumably with priority. And popping the Magical Cylinder. So pretty good pop there. You don't want to be taking extra damage. You don't want to be taking 2,800. So popping the Magical Cylinder, and then probably considering some more effects to pop more cards. And yeah, it looks like he does pop one, and then the chained pops the other back row, and then the chained Wing Blast onto the Dark Arm Dragon. But then Solemn Judgment protecting the Dark Arm Dragon. So this Dark Arm just coming down and causing havoc, just causing complete chaos here. Dark Arm Dragon, one of those extremely powerful cards in the format that can just take over a game by itself, proving to be absolutely ridiculous in the spot here. So Nick, considering his options and how he should follow up, trying to maximize his damage, and he ends up flipping over the Snowman Eater to kill the Barbaros, clearing the way for a direct attack with Dark Arm. But we're going to see if he adds anything else to the board, and it looks like he is going to, or at least he's thinking about it. Dark Arm, I can't iterate this enough. I mean, just absurdly powerful in this format. It's limited to one for a reason. Comes down, destroys the whole board, worth protecting with Solemn Judgment, paying half your life to do so. And just extremely favorable board position now from Nick. And now we have Plague Spreader Zombie. Looks like coming back out of the graveyard, stacking a card on the top. And then a Synchro Summon into a level 5 monster. Presumably he's going to be summoning Magical Android. And there it is. Magical Android trying to maximize damage and just push for game. And it looks like both attacks go through with 24 and 28. That's a ton of damage. And then a back row behind the board there. Mike drawing for turn now. And still has that Mausoleum in play. Let's see if he can do anything with that. And he's looking around, so looking in the graveyard, seeing what he can do. Sets 2 back row. So we'll see exactly what Mike has face down, as Dark Arm kind of running out of activations, but we have a Wing Blast, and that's going to target one of the back rows here. So we're going to put one to the top, and then Dark Arm's going to pop the other one and extends the hand. So GG's from both these players. Fairly interesting matchup going back and forth, and a lot of fun, right? We had the display of Geartown Amaryllis on the left, just kind of doing a whole bunch of different things, and then the explosive Diva hero plays over and over again. This deck just displaying its extreme power, and that's about it, guys. So let me know what you guys thought about the matchup. Let me know what you guys thought about the Geartown Amaryllis deck in the comments below. And without further ado, this is Dan V from SSG signing out.